Hi, I'm David Salmon, founder and chief horticulturist at High Country Gardens, and I'm going to show you how to plant the High Country Garden plants. First thing you do when you get your order, open the box. Don't leave the plants in the box for several days because the quality of the plants will decline quickly. Open the box, remove the plants from their plastic bags, which we use to keep the soil intact in the plants. And each plant will have a tag so that you can check the plants in your box with the packing list that is included. Depending on the time of the year, our plants may be shipped dormant or in active growth. The main thing is look at the top, and you should see during the growing season you'll see nice green growth. If it's very early in the season, parts of the above ground parts of the plant may be dormant. The key thing on High Country Garden plants is we grow great roots. So this is what you're buying really when you're buying perennials, is a really good strong root system. Now we're going to be looking at the specifics of how to actually get the plants out of the pot and into the ground. First and most important, you need to dig a hole. So generally, if you're going, whether it's an already prepared bed or fresh ground that hasn't been cultivated before, you want to dig roughly a 1 foot wide by 1 foot deep hole. Key thing is width, not depth. Some people get it wrong and dig a very deep, narrow hole, but the most important thing is to get a nice wide hole, at least the depth of the pot, but preferably a little bit deeper. Again, I like the 1 foot by 1 foot. And as you take the soil out of the hole, pile it to the side, because we're going to want to amend the soil to get your plants off to the best possible start. Now generally we sell either hardy garden perennials that enjoy a richer, more moisture retentive soil, or xeric perennials, shrubs and ornamental grasses that like a leaner soil. In general, I always use Yum Yum mix. So to prepare the planting hole, take roughly a palm full of the Yum Yum mix. And I always like to use some compost on our hardy garden perennials. The Soil Mender earthworm castings are outstanding. So I'll take a handful of that, blend it. This is into the backfill, because this is where the roots are going to go first. And then I'll put a little bit additional into the bottom of the hole. Get in there with my trowel and mix that in thoroughly. All right, there we go. Now, we've got the backfill mixed. We've got the soil amendments mixed into the soil beneath the plant's root ball. And then let's talk about how to get the plant out of the pot. Best thing to do is loosen the root ball by squeezing the sides of the pots. You can squeeze the side and then push up from the bottom. Then place your fingers over the top of the pot and lift the pot off of the root ball. Never yank the plant out of the pot by its stem, because that can sometimes cause damage. Lift the pot off. Now you'll note a nice healthy root system. Very important, however, to do what we call scratching out the roots. Otherwise, a lot of roots will tend to stay in the shape of the pot, not spread out into the surrounding soil, which of course is important to get them off and growing. So I use the handy plastic tag which identifies the plants that you received, and just using a sharp edge, score the sides of the root ball. With the edge of the tag you can also use a pocket knife, and you don't need to go too deep, about a 1/4 inch, just about that deep in that corner. You want to get the sides and the bottom of the root ball. If the plant has a lot of roots coming out the bottom of the root ball, tear those off before you remove the plant. Now this root ball has a nice fuzzy look to it, so that's a properly scratched out root ball. So we're going to put it into the hole. The key thing is not to plant too deep or plant too high. So in general, you can eyeball it, but if you're uncomfortable with that, just put a stick across the top of the hole, which will give you the level of the surrounding soil. You put the plant in. Here's your mixed soil, which you just fill in around the side. Now in arid climates, I like to plant a little low because that helps create a saucer to hold the irrigation water, which is essential to get your new transplants off to a good start. So you'll note that I'm about, maybe an inch below grade. Now if you're in a moister climate, then you're going to want to plant right at grade. Then with your fingers, lightly push the soil into the hole around the new transplant. Never water before you transplant, because that just makes a very hard soil that will be very compacted once it starts to dry down. You always water after the plant has been transplanted. Use some of the extra soil from the hole to make what I call a well, so you don't forget what it is. These are weatherproof plastic tags. Put that in the hole so that you know what you've planted. And this is very, very important, particularly in arid climates, is to create a well to hold the irrigation water. So it's basically, I planted below grade, so it's just a low depression. Then I use the excess soil to just kind of build up a little bit of a wall around the edge of the planting hole. And then eventually, it's good to, particularly in arid climates, to actually fill in this saucer with a good coarse textured mulch. Now, once the plant is in place, the soil has been firmed, it's time to water. And the important thing about watering is you want to do it twice. You want to water it initially. I like to just pour it into my hand so that I don't wash the plant out of the planting hole. So the key thing is fill the well. That's why having a nice wide, about 2-inch deep well is important. Now we're going to let this water soak into the hole, which will take about 5 minutes, and then we're going to come back and put that equal amount of water a second time. And so what this does is assure that the soil in the planting hole is well saturated with water. And then the second or third time that you're watering, you can use your root stimulator combo pack, but never use the root stimulator combo first in dry soil. You always want to add that after the soil has been moistened the first time. Now you can see from the first watering in the well that holds the irrigation water, the soil has now absorbed that initial watering, so it's time to give it a second watering. Now the second watering can involve the root stimulator combo pack that you put into the water in your watering can. So you fill up the well a second time and you let that soak in, and that ensures that the entire soil mass around your new transplant is quite moist, which is very, very important to get new transplants off to a good start, as they need lots of water. Even the xeric plants. Don't make the mistaken assumption that these xeric plants just need a little dribble of water and then they're off on their own. Just like any other plant, they need to get off to a good start with adequate water. One of the most important things that you can do to ensure that you have planting success with your new garden residents is adequate watering after transplanting. Even xeric plants need regular watering to establish. In general, you can water anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week, maybe even 4 or 5 times a week, and what that depends on is the daytime temperatures. The warmer it is, the more frequently you'll need to water. If, like me, you like to plant early in the spring or in the fall, you won't need to water quite as often. Watering frequency should not be confused with watering amounts. Whenever you water, water thoroughly. So this well that I made when I planted the plant, fill it up twice, whether that's once a week or 4 times a week. You want to be sure that you saturate the soil adequately. Now for many xeric plants, the 1 to 3 times a week may only be for the first month to 6 weeks. Again, depending on temperature. I watch the plants, and when you see new growth coming from the plants, that's a good indication that you can water less frequently. But again, water deeply, just less frequently to get your transplants off to a great start. Now, one question that comes up a lot is how much sun is full sun, part sun, or shade? Generally, full sun is considered 6 to 8 hours of sun. Partial shade out here in the west is morning sun, so an area that goes into the shade around lunch or 1 o'clock is considered partial shade. And then full shade is an area that maybe only gets an hour or less of direct sun or is under a shade tree, so it gets dappled light. Now when you're back east, you can use those same parameters, but a half day of sun may also include morning shade and then full sun in the afternoon. Out here in the west, our sun is so intense that after a half day of sun from noon till sunset is considered a full day of sun just because of the intensity of the higher elevation sun out here in the west.